Welcome back to the Now Morning Show. So our next guest is on a mission to empower people with knowledge. This morning, we are talking about the legislative series created to meet the gap of educating and engaging the public on our current legislative framework and what has been referred to as its inadequacy to propel the development of Tobago. Dr. Tsioafatt-Angus joins us to share on the series and focus on this week's series discussion, Healing Tobago, Igniting the Conversation on Healthcare. Good morning, Dr. Tsioafatt-Angus, and welcome back to the Now Morning Show.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you with us this morning. How are you doing today?
I am good, thanks. It's a sunny day in Tobago, not too hot, so we're good.
That's wonderful to hear. I know of one thing we've been experiencing some very different weather from extreme heat to extreme rain. So hoping that that's something that's going to continue. So Dr. Tsioafatt-Angus, let's get straight into the conversation about the legislative series in particular before we get into the theme. What drew you to say it's time to have this sort of virtual discussion and open it up to the public, not just, of course, in Trinidad and Tobago, but throughout the world?
The cries of the people. Being on the ground in Tobago, you're hearing the despair in people's voices and their cries. The fact that, the current administration has truly disappointed them in terms of, the development of Tobago. They continue to cry out about the fact that there's just too much bacchanal. I mean, how much more bacchanal can we have? We have gone from audio gate to audit gate. And what you have is both administrations, pointing the guns at each other and exposing the ills that both of them are engaging in. We hear about the cries of corruption, the fact that the contractors are not being paid, and the termination of persons in different spheres by this administration, the intimidation that people feel that they cannot speak out and speak up for themselves because A, they wouldn't get a job or they may lose their job.
Right.
And people are bursting. But again, they have not figured out what can we do.
So with your legislative series, Dr. Tsioafatt-Angus, apologies for cutting across, but with your legislative series, if I may, one of the things that has been noted is that you do have different themes. So let's talk, if we can, because you know how time goes here. Time flies when you and I get together to have a discussion with the nation as well. So let's go into today's particular theme for this week and how you see it fitting into the grand scheme of things when it comes to the cries of the people and that necessity for Tobago to be able to come together and bring about change.
Right. So let me add, with the cries of the people, you want them to understand that it's no longer just leaving everything for the leaders to do, but they now have to become in crafting their own way forward, their destiny. And so inside of that, we have had several conversations, and it began with the legislature because our powers begin with the level of the legislature. So today we are going to be talking about health. And the most important thing in our life is life and longevity. And inside of that, it's health. And so we're looking at the policies that must be improving the lives and the livelihood of people, because the livelihood contributes also to our quality of living and our health. And using the medical or the healthcare system as not just a driver of healthcare in terms of sickness, but also in terms of wellness and economic development.
Something that you just mentioned, Dr. Tsioafatt-Angus, is so important with the inclusion of healthcare in particular. Now, for those who are interested in accessing the legislative series, where are they able to observe, possibly participate, and get more information?
Okay, we've been doing them on Zoom because We want a closed environment where people feel that they can actually contribute and contribute meaningfully to the conversation. And so we invite everyone to actually participate. It's not just for Tobago, it's Trinidad, it's the diaspora, and even the rest of the Caribbean, because oftentimes many of the challenges we are experiencing now, persons are experiencing it elsewhere. And we do have different experts from around the region who also weigh in on the conversation. Um, in terms of accessing the Zoom, you can send a message to 702-2089 and we can extend the links to you.
Wonderful. Is there any particular age group that this is aimed at, or can all ages join the conversation?
All ages should join the conversation because this is about all of us. We had a healthy discussion 2 weeks ago on the education sector and the reform that must happen to become more relevant for 21st century economic development, because our economic development also rests on our education system, which is not meeting the needs of the people right now. Last week, we spoke about the assembly having lawmaking powers. Can we have sufficient lawmaking powers with 13 people making a decision and 2 people who only have a voice? Should there be a Senate or a Senate-like function to ensure that whatever laws are made for the protection of the citizens and ensuring the economic development and the sustainable programs, that we are not playing, and for want of a better term, bat up and catch with our policies that with successive administrations get thrown out of the window, even though they were good policies for development going forward.
Definitely. You've mentioned some things there that I know are a concern for many, as you mentioned, not just here throughout Trinidad and Tobago, but throughout the world as well. How long is the legislative series running for, Dr. Tsioafatt-Angus?
It started, let's see, a couple months ago, and it has continued. We intend to look at every single sector that contributes to our quality of life and get the people involved in that conversation. And it is not just about the sectors themselves, but showing people how the legislature is intertwined in that conversation. And that is very important to us right now because I know that the bill is in Parliament. Lord knows when it's going to come up or the purpose for it coming up, because right now, from our standpoint, the bill currently is inadequate to treat with the assembly right now as it is. Just giving more powers to the assembly without the proper structures in place, I think we're asking for more trouble. And therefore, these are the discussions that we will continue in terms of being on Zoom. Before then, we take it to the ground level to engage the people on the ground who have not been available to make themselves to meet on Zoom. And the challenge, we also have is that people feel that the islands, we are not going forward. We're not moving together because on one hand, you have those in Tobago who are declaring war on Trinidad openly, and then you have Trinidad silently responding. At the end of the day, these are two leaders
Yes.
who cannot get along. What type of childish behavior are we experiencing when people are hurting and the true development has to take place now? We are seeing crime at an all-time high, and yet the economy is lagging seriously.
Definitely.
their
Dr.
first
Tsioafatt-Angus, I'm so
way
sorry,
of
but we do
approaching
have to end the conversation. We have run out of time, but thank you so much for joining us this morning. And thank you, as a concerned citizen, former presiding officer and leader, for ensuring that this conversation continues and it can reach everybody. Have a wonderful day, and we look forward to having you on again soon.
Thank you.
Dr. Tsioafatt-Angus talking about the legislative series that's happening. Of course, you are able to access it on Zoom. I like the fact that it's something which is available to all ages. I think that's definitely
It's important to learn the laws and to learn, the framework in which they sit, because a lot of people get mistaken or something that they hear or whatever the case might be, and there's oftentimes misinformation. So kudos to Dr. Tsioafatt-Angus for trying to bring it all to light and, of course, lay it out on the table so that we can get a better idea of the laws that we're dealing with.
Of course, yeah. I know we're looking forward to the next conversation, Rockers. Tobago Carnival is happening.
Most definitely. We're getting ready to tell you which band you can be a part of if you so choose to play. We have that and so much more on the Now Morning Show. Stick around. It's a great morning ahead.
When does someone really become a good citizen?